Joining us today is Elea Faucheron, and she's here to talk to us today about stress and burnout. And I just love her. I'm reading her book right now, so I kind of feel like I'm Oprah, and I'm getting to interview her about her great book that I'm really enjoying. So this is such a privilege for me. I'm really excited about it. But one of the chapters that really resonated with me, one of the titles, you said when you wake up and feel like life isn't fueling you, but draining you. And that I really want to focus on talking about that today because we're addressing a lot of moms, and frankly, that can really feel like it's draining you. So thank you for joining us today, Elea.
Yes, thanks. Thanks for having me, Sarah. This is awesome.
All right, well, let's get down to some good stuff. Okay. There's so many great things in this book that I love, but one of the key things that you talk about is burnout and why it doesn't happen to the people you kind of think it does for the reason you think it does. And you really specifically hit it on the head with you need a burning passion. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So when I experienced burnout, I really didn't think I was burnout. I was denying everything that was kind of going on in my life at that moment. And it was really my physical body and all the ailments that started to come up due to the stress that really got my attention. And as I started to think about what could be causing this and where the stress was coming from, I was having a conversation with a woman who said to me, in order to burn out, you need to have a burning passion. And that hit me so hard because I thought all of a sudden, I'm okay, I'm enough.
Yeah.
This didn't happen because I don't love my business or my clients or the things that I do. This happened because I didn't know where my boundaries were. I gave too much, and I was looking at stress in a way that was really unsupportive and not fueling me versus giving me energy.
Awesome. I can't wait to dig into that a lot more. We're going to go into so many details today. But one of the things I wanted to just remark on about you is how much you've helped me over the years. And I'm reading your book. I'm in a good place now, a really good place. And that's part of the reason why I want to share it with everybody is because once you've been there before, you don't ever want to go back. So I feel like this is preventative measures on boundaries and stress and having that life where you just don't wake up feeling drained, but you wake up feeling fueled and energetic and ready to go. Okay, so let's talk about our brains and kind of how our brains are wired, and let's start in there with that.
So as I started to dig into the information more, of course, there's lots of talk right now about neuroplasticity and about our brains and neuroscience. And what I found was the most powerful little nugget was realizing that our brains are efficient machines and they look for efficiency. They want to do everything very efficiently. So the reason changing can be really hard is because your brain is going down a certain path. It knows it wants to go that way because it's going to save time and energy. I like to equate it to if you're, blazing through the woods and you've got one trail that's completely beaten down and easy to go down, it's going to be very efficient versus going down another trail that's not cleared yet and you're going to have to pull out the machete and start bushwhacking and jumping over things or whatever it might be. And so this is a really important key, I think, to remember is that your brain is just trying to do what's easy. And I feel like that can really help us separate the thing from, well, I just can't do it, or it's too hard, or it's too much of this or that, is to just realize, oh, I just need to send my brain down a different path.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about how you get people doing that and sending their brains into a different path. But I see the same thing with physical pain. I see people that their body is stuck in patterns and their body is so used to moving that way that it takes so much more effort for their brain to lay down new pathways for them to have different movements and different outcomes. It takes a lot of effort. So how do you help your clients with thinking differently?
Absolutely. And the big thing with this is building momentum, kind of like you're saying with the body movement, because I see this as well too. I love being really active. You know this. We do all kinds of fun sports together. And it's the determination to build the momentum in a certain direction. And so what I like to tell my clients is that if you're trying to move in a certain way, towards a goal or something very specific, get really specific about it. Find out all the details that you can, or like what you do. Get really present and specific on how you need to be doing this body movement and doing the repetitions and that sort of thing. And what you don't want to go towards, go really general. So don't get really specific. Don't let your brain start thinking about all the terrible things that happened and then start snowballing onto all of that.
You were talking about the difference between how you focus on negative thoughts versus how you focus on positive thoughts.
Yes. So like if I have something positive that I really want to focus on, like how much excitement that I've got around my book and that I want to reach a lot of people with it and get this message out, and that, I've talked to all these people, I will start to really get specific about all the great things that are happening. If I start thinking negatively, or I'm like, I don't know if anybody's going to get this book, or if it's really, important, or this, that, the other, I'll get really general and I'll go, you know what, this book is amazing. I think it does have a lot to offer people. If it doesn't, that's okay. It'll find its people. And the important thing to remember about the brain is that when you ask a question, it's going to find evidence for what you think. So if you say to yourself,
so true on so many things.
Yeah, if you say to yourself, I really suck at this, or I'm not good at that, your brain will go, oh, okay, let me go find all of the evidence to prove this right, because that's what I do. I'm an evidence gatherer. So that's really important too, to realize that your brain is it's been given a task, and so it's going to go find the evidence to get that.
Which is so true. If you're at the end of the day, you're tired, marks off at a work dinner somewhere, I've got kid bedtime by myself, which you deserve an award for single parenting, even if it's only for one night. And I'm like, if I tell myself, oh, I'm so tired, I'm just drained, I really wish I had help tonight, the kids are being blah, 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 then you just start to feel this huge weight. And you really feel that negativity sink in. But if I tell myself, okay, this is going to be easy, it's going to be fun. Oh, look at the cute thing that Squishy just did. I'm really going to enjoy this night. Like, I'm going to recruit my older one to be my big helper. And then things start to really have a more positive feel. And suddenly I don't feel as drained and the task doesn't feel as hard. So you're definitely saying don't focus on the positive in detail, and then kind of gloss over the negative. Like, okay, I have to do this alone. That's fine. I'm tough. I'm strong. All right, here's the positives. So I love that.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the really important thing is, sometimes, especially if you're in a really negative place, it can really just piss you off for someone to say, well, just focus on the positive. And so I think the really important thing too is that you don't have to go from a super negative place to a really, really positive place. Sometimes it's just like that tiny little next step of I'm okay, or this isn't that bad, or tomorrow is not that far away. And you can kind of see how you can start to make those steps forward.
So then one little small positive thought at a time. Well, and especially if we turn this into the physical realm, because I feel like your book has so much carryover into everything. But if we turn this into our physical goals, with the women trying to work with me to relieve pelvic floor issues and diastasis and help their body feel better, if they can take that one step at a time and think about those little small wins, like, oh, I got this muscle to work, I found it, that's huge, instead of thinking, oh, I have so far to go, it's going to be so hard. It's just, I see the difference. I see how much faster they get better than the ones that focus on the negative. The ones that focus on the positive get better so much faster. It's incredible.
Yes, that is so true, so true. And it's really taking that pause to realize that we do actually have a choice with our brains, because if we're so busy that we're not able to stay very present, it's going to be really easy for your brain to just kick over into the negative, because that's another kind of part of us that's wired. We're wired to be constantly focused on the negative as a way to keep ourselves safe. It's kind of like that survival
instinct. You're always waiting for the sky to fall. The sky is falling. The sky is falling.
Exactly. And because we are all so busy now, that sense of safety and survival is almost in high gear for most of us all the time.
Because we're
so it's really easy for our brains to be like, okay, we got a lot of negative stuff going on here, and I need to tell you all about it.
Lots of stimulus. It's like, oh, we're in a forest and there's a mountain lion and there's a bear and there's a food shortage. Except it's just we're driving somewhere to carpool kids.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And another thing that you mentioned, which I think is really important to go back to, which is to celebrate and really acknowledge yourself. I think one thing too, where us, busy people, which actually I don't know many people that aren't busy right now, but that busyness can keep us from celebrating those small wins, those small steps, which that's another way of building momentum in that positive direction.
Well, a couple years ago when I was fairly stressed out, one thing you said that really stuck with me was find the 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I would throw both the kids at my husband so he could do bath time, and I'd go in the kitchen and turn on some of my favorite music and even just clean the kitchen. But the act of cleaning the kitchen while listening to my favorite song and dancing around the kitchen made everything so much better. I was like, this is 5 minutes of me time. Like, this is good. I've got good music. I've got movement. So that was your tip on helping me just find when you are so busy and a lot of it isn't under your control, trying to find those 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there where you can truly connect and do something that makes you happy.
Yeah. The out of your control piece is really important. And that kind of goes back to one thing that I think too is so important. If you feel like there's a lot of your life that is kind of out of your control and is not going in a way that you want, and you're kind of feeling like a bit of a failure, or you're just like kind of down on yourself, one great thing you can do is just find something really simple, like fixing a drawer in your kitchen, or
it's a win.
It's a win. Yeah, you've got to find really small wins. Like when I was going through my burnout, I actually found so much gratification in cleaning or fixing tiny little things in my house or repainting the baseboards, because it was a quick gratification and it was a quick win. And I really needed that in a time in my life when I felt like everything else around me was, in chaos or a complete fail.
Well, I mean, you can't control when a kid is teething. You can't control when, your 3-year-old or 4-year-old or 2-year-old has to find themselves. They're finding the boundaries. That's going to create strife. And when you have a difficult person, even if they're small in the household, it creates a lot of negative energy that you've got to try to combat. So do you have tips for combating when other people are bringing negative energy, no matter what their age, whether they're grown adults or they're tiny little small humans? What tips do you have for combating others' negative energy with people that you have to be around because you just, you can't leave your kid?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I think the biggest thing with negative energy is actually being a force for moving that energy into another direction. So going back to the body movement piece, I love this analogy when I think about martial arts and some of the martial arts like jiu-jitsu and things like that, where there's an attack energy coming towards them, and their job is to figure out how to deflect and move it out. Mm-hmm. And so I like to kind of really think about it as, how can I move this energy into a positive direction? So if the kids are going nuts or crazy, or there's a really negative
how can we manipulate our children?
Yeah. How can you evoke this sense of the best in them? How can you move that energy into another direction? Because we can't necessarily be moving in both directions at once. So if we're moving into a negative space, it is tough to get back over to the positive. But if we can just make those little shifts, we'll start going in the other direction.
You've got to be bringing energy to the table to be able to do that. You've got to be able to make that shift when my oldest is like, my legs don't work, I can't walk, I can't do that. We banished the word can't from our household, and we now say I can try.
Yeah, that's great.
Which is coming back to bite me when I want to tell her no, and she's like, well, Mommy, you can try. And I'm like, oh gosh. So they copy everything that we do more than they follow what we say. So one of the things that I find hard being a working mother, who I love my job, I don't want to stay home, I want to do my work, I love it, but it's hard because I feel guilty at the same time, because I feel like, well, should I be spending all of my time with my children? And then, so the time I'm not at work, I feel like, all right, I need to give everything. And so I know logically that I need self-care time, and I know I shouldn't feel guilty. Like, I get that logically, but sometimes we can't help how we feel. So what tips do you have for moving past those feelings of guilt when we know logically we shouldn't have them, but they still surface?
Yeah, absolutely. This is where I like to say things like, why am I shoulding all over myself?
Why am I shoulding? I love it. Why am I shooting all over? I'm gonna remember that one.
So this, when I was in the worst of my burnout and I was super busy, it was funny because I realized, I thought feeling my feelings was like I didn't have time for that. And I thought not only did I not have time for that, but that if I just pushed them away, it was more time efficient. But of course, all of that, snuck up and bit me in the end. And so what I like to really encourage people to do is actually, if you feel the emotion, to actually feel it, because the more you push it away or the more you say later, or I don't have time for this, the stronger it gets and the more it builds. So if you can handle it right away, kind of like maybe with your kids when you're, hey, we need to make sure we do this behavioral discipline right away when it happens versus 5 hours when they probably don't even remember what it was that they did, right? Yes. Yes, to handle it right then and there. So I actually have a quick step process that I like to do where if I can just realize that I'm actually feeling guilty and then just breathe, take some deep breaths, and then actually try to figure out where I can feel that emotion in my body. And it can really take, again, not that long to just take a few breaths and just think, okay, am I feeling this in my stomach? Is it in my heart? Is it in between my eyebrows? As my eyebrows furrow, just kind of noticing what the sensation is in your body. And then I like to expel it. So again, this can be 2 seconds. Maybe that means I go punch a pillow, or maybe that means I do 5 push-ups really quick, or maybe that means I do a handstand, anything to just kind of move my body a little bit. And then I get quiet and I just ask, what is this emotion pointing to? Mm-hmm. And you just want to kind of get quiet and just listen to what it is. Now, if you get an answer like, I need to schedule my 5 minutes of alone time.
Yes.
That's
let me make a mental note that emotion told me that I need to schedule this alone time and I need to make it happen.
Exactly. Yeah. If you get an answer like, I should go put sugar in so-and-so's gas tank, then that's probably not, the way you want to go, and that you just need to keep sitting for a few more minutes before you get the answer. You'll know when it's right.
Sometimes it helps me to write things out, just to, like you're saying, feel them, express them, but then I don't have to act on them.
Exactly.
And it's really helpful.
And this really can take less than a minute if you just give it some practice time. And you can find that you can actually really dissipate emotions really quickly if you just practice that quick step process.
Well, and then you can figure out where they're coming from, why you're having them, and then what you can change to make it better in the future. Because if I show up for pickup and I'm in a good mood and I feel rested and have poured back into me, at some point made that a priority, I can dispel the negative energy or the fussies in the room a lot easier. And I'm influencing my child to then be more positive, which will then help relieve her stress and make her life better. So it's so important.
Absolutely.
You were talking earlier about the example we show our children.
It's so important, the example that we're showing them, because, as we are seeing, I don't think things are going to be slowing down anytime soon. And our kids really, really, really need these stress management tools. I think, a lot of us didn't get a lot of that when we were growing up. And so we've kind of had to figure it out along the way. And the more we can set an example for our children on how to manage stress, then the better they're going to be capable moving into the world. And of course, hopefully breaking a bit of that cycle that can be so damaging. Right now, the World Health Organization says that stress is the epidemic of the 21st century. This is...
When there's so many health-related issues with stress, you wrote a big, long list.
Exactly.
Do you want to share those with everybody so we can really feel guilty about feeling stressed?
Well, the interesting thing, I think the fascinating thing is that stress manifests so differently in everybody's body. But as a lot of the doctors are saying, 70 to 90% of the doctor's visits, while we're giving labels to all of these symptoms, the root cause a lot of times is the stress. And so, I think the the most important thing is really understanding that stress is now becoming like our primary responsibility to ourselves to manage and relieve versus just going to the doctor and saying, how, relieve my stress. What do I need to do? It's really like taking your power back from your life, a lot of what you're doing with the pelvic floor stuff of really just realizing, hey, there's something here and I need to take my power back and start fixing it and moving my life
We
in a
can have
direction that I
control
want it to
over
be.
our lives, physically and mentally. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that,
Yes.
knowing that that's possible, knowing that we can have hope for that, for on all
Mm-hmm.
levels, no matter what our circumstances are and no matter what we've been given, we can take back some control. So,
Absolutely. And
oh, keep going.
go. Well, I was going to say, and a lot of times, some of us have busier lives than others, but if you're kind of in that whirlwind of like, you cannot stop, or the emotion or the intensity of the stress is so high, I always find that, if you can just ask, what do I need in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
What do I need right now? And maybe that's just a glass of water. Maybe that's just a couple of deep breaths. Maybe that's, I haven't eaten in 5 hours and I could really use a salad. Something like that is like that simple question of what do I need right now can be really helpful. You don't necessarily have to schedule a full day at the spa, even though that would be really
I need
nice.
a week-long vacation with just my husband.
Yeah.
I'm making that one happen. See you later, kids.
Yeah.
Prioritizing the marriage. No, it's so hard. Well, one of the things that I love about this is the example that we're setting. I feel like there's such a big movement with body positive for our young girls, and having a daughter, I don't criticize my body anyway, but I would never want someone to criticize their body in front of them, in front of her, where she's picking up on that, like, oh, is mom on a diet, or is mom worried about this or that, or we carry over those body image issues to our daughter. I was lucky enough to be raised by a woman who I don't even remember her ever mentioning anything about her body, so there was nothing that was ever, I don't think she's ever been on a diet, or she just kept it to herself. So I think there's this big movement with body positive for our young girls, but there's not a stress positive movement yet. I feel like that's really behind the curve. So I think you're really
Yes.
onto something here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I think, a lot of our society, we're getting the message like physical health is important. We need to exercise. We have a huge obesity problem. And so people are getting out there. They're getting the message. They're changing the way that they're eating. I mean, just the fact that we have grocery stores like Whole Foods now that are taking over a lot of our cities, which is amazing. But I remember growing up and, health food stores were like where all the weird hippies went, and I was one of those.
I know, I was going to say, you were in that health store.
Yeah. Which is great and amazing. And now we're starting to realize how powerful that the mind is and how powerful our thinking is. And I think that is so important, especially for our young women and men, of like realizing how powerful that their minds are and how the thoughts that they're thinking can really affect, how they feel and how they're, putting themselves out into the world. And of course, the other big thing that I talk a lot about is just having fun. In all
Yes.
this busyness is like,
Yes.
how can we have more fun? How can we play more? And I think that's one of the great gifts of having children is to really, let them help you embrace remembering how to play.
Yeah, if you let them, if you give them the time
Yes.
to do that, you've
Yes.
got to give them the time. So with this whole what we're passing down, so I didn't get passed down body image issues, but my mom was always worrying. And she was very good at worrying about everything, and I feel like I too struggle with worry and that stress in that area, and so trying to fight that. So it's really a real thing to me what we pass down to our children and how they listen to us. And so when my
Yes.
daughter's stressing about something, I'm like, I'm not worried. It's fine. We're gonna, things are good. Let's talk about the positive. Let's try and. So I really do. I think that's just, if nothing else, we need to do it for our children.
Yeah, yeah. And, I'm glad you mentioned worry because I feel like, anytime worry is one that can get a lot of momentum going in your mind. I mean, we can start spiraling this around until, we are like in a full tizzy. And another quick thing that I really like to do if I feel myself going down that route is again, get it out. So I'll either write down the sentences or the thoughts that are crossing my mind. I'll put them on paper. Then I can look at them and I'm like, whoa, like I can separate myself from them a little bit more.
So
And that
you
logical
see your
side.
tangible, like, why it's not practical.
Yes. Yes. Another really powerful one is even just recording yourself,
Oh, yeah.
which I know is kind of scary for some people, but if you have an app on your phone, I do a
Hey,
recording
it's
app.
still scary for
Um,
me, and I do it like every day.
yeah. Yeah. You can literally just, record yourself and don't be shy about what you're thinking. Let that stuff out. Don't try to filter it because the more you filter it, the more you can kind of give it energy or give it prominence in your mind that it's actually, real. But if you actually just let it come out as crazy as it feels in your mind, then for sure you'll be like, wow,
I
this
am
is wild.
crazy.
And this is, yeah, and this is what meditation teachers are teaching, which is really just observing the mind. Because as soon as you can kind of start observing it, you can sort of realize you're separated from it a little bit. And
You
you're
can
like, it's
control
more like
it.
more like watching a movie and
Uh-huh.
being like, oh wow, this is a really funny, crazy movie versus I'm in the movie.
Yes, so you don't get so wrapped up in it. It's such a great. This is back to your shoulds. This is your shoulds, except it's your what ifs.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
just all these what ifs. You don't need to worry until you know what you should worry about. So instead of
Yes,
having all of those what ifs, we should have positives. And that's where you get
yes,
into your practice of training your brain to think about the positive and not worry about all of the what ifs until you know what you should worry about. Which, I mean, how guilty are we of worrying about everything that where we don't even know? There's no actionable steps to be taken yet.
yeah, yeah. One of the big things actually that they talked about in my coaching program was that phrase, what if?
Hmm.
And to just kind of notice that as another sort of alarm point as far as what's coming after that. Same sort of thing as should. And I'm not saying the word should is a bad word, but I now, whenever I hear myself say it, I always kind of gut check. Am I shoulding
Um,
on myself? Or am
I
I using
yes.
this in a good way?
Should I do this? Ooh, yeah, I probably shouldn't say I should do it. I should either do it or not do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I called you
Yeah.
the other day. We were discussing new workouts and prioritizing time. And I was like, I
Hmm.
need to quit saying I should do this. I just need to put it on my calendar and I need to do it. And I kick myself if I catch myself saying I should do something more than once. And it's like, all right, I need to take actionable steps or it needs to be gone. Because that saying that should
Exactly.
really creates a guilty feeling when you don't act on it. And then I feel like that makes you just spiral down into just a bad place.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. That should piece is so true. It definitely holds a lot of weight. And I think that's important, like you said, for a long time I sort of thought cutting things off of my list was a bad thing, especially if it was something I really wanted to do. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to take it off. But I realized that I could take it off. I could take it off for 6 months or three
Mm-hmm.
months, or I could take it off until next year. And the feeling of that was like, oh, okay.
Yes.
It's not going away forever. It's just parked over here until I'm ready for it.
But then you could focus on the goals that you really want to accomplish,
Hmm.
pour your energy into them, have all this forward progress and positive mentality. And
Yeah,
maybe that's self care, maybe that's whatever, that's connecting with your family, maybe that's, whatever that looks like. I just feel like
yeah,
when you're right, when you cut that out, it just leaves so much room on your plate.
yeah. I also like to talk a lot about to-do lists and then to-be lists.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So, this kind of juxtaposition between what do I want to do, but then also how do I want to be, this year or this month or even just today. Today is like, how do I want to be while I'm, doing all of my to-do list.
Yes. Well, yeah. And right now we're getting ready to start a challenge in my group. One of the things I'm having them do is go ahead and start thinking about they're writing their Christmas cards for the next year. It's the next year, they're writing their Christmas cards.
Yeah.
What do they want their life to look like? Because that's that picture when you look back and you're like, oh, I did all these great things this year. Christmas cards are so funny in that way. But when you look back on your life and you think, what did I want my life to look like? I feel like that step is so much easier to take when you're at a bigger perspective than when you're caught up with all your
Yes.
emotions.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. And I heard this on an interview somewhere, and I wish I could remember the person's name because I should probably give them credit. But um, he had two questions that were really simple that he liked to ask if you're really struggling with something about whether to do it or not to do it, or whether you want to keep it on your to-do list or not. And that is, is it working, and am I happy?
Yes.
So, if you have yes to both of those questions, then hey, you're doing well. If you have a no to both of those questions, then obviously maybe something, it needs to go. Maybe it just needs to go till next year. And if it's a middle of the two, if it's like yes and no, then you'd know that something just needs to be tweaked. Doesn't necessarily need to be pitched, but maybe there's just a little negotiation that has to happen to make it better.
Yeah, we can change our approach, change the stimulus, change it. Yes, because we're in control. We can change it. We can change our thoughts. We can change our actions. Yeah. I just love it. Okay, so I have like a zillion pages flagged in your book that I've turned down, and I just really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today to offer up some really great advice. Do you have any parting advice that you want to leave these ladies with that are for them waking up in the morning and feeling fueled instead of feeling drained?
Yes. I think the biggest thing is, for me, the simple steps. And so what I want to give them is just the move, think, smile. 3 words. Mm-hmm. And for me, this is really simple because it just, when I wake up in the morning or even throughout the day, I might be like, what do I need to do as far as movement goes? What would help me feel really good right now? Do I need to stretch or maybe take a little walk? Or is there a bold move I need to take as far as saying no to something so that I can have a few minutes of peace? If I'm stressed about something or worried about my day, I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I have another day that I have to face. Mm-hmm. How can I change the way that I'm thinking about this? Am I going down that bunny trail of negativity? Am I building momentum towards negativity or towards positivity? And then the smile piece is, where can I have some fun? How can my kids make me smile today? Help me smile today? Or, maybe it's just going on YouTube and finding somebody you think is really funny and watching it for 3 minutes.
You need that YouTube friend. You need that YouTube friend where they send you a funny video at least a couple times a week where you're like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious.
Yes, all those cat videos, right?
Find your YouTube friend. If you take nothing away, find your YouTube friend.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate your time. And thank you so much for your amazing resource that you're providing for everyone who's dealing with stress and burnout and helping us get our lives back and feel positive and wonderful.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here and honored.